Howdy freeze dryers, it's Brian with Live Life Simple and welcome back to the Live Life Simple kitchen. Today we're going to do another Mountain House versus Harvestright video. I'm getting good feedback on these and I really enjoy doing these videos because I really enjoy putting my Harvestright to work and I like putting it up against the competition and showing how much money can be saved, how much food you can put away very quickly with the Harvestright. And in my last video, the price of what I was comparing, the Mountain House version of what I was comparing, had actually gone up just in the few short weeks that it took to record the video. And today's video is chicken and dumplings from Mountain House, and this is no exception. These just keep getting more and more expensive, so let's get to it. Our recipe is a very easy one. It's only 6 ingredients and it also goes in the Instant Pot, which makes it that much easier. Normally I like to start off these versus videos by checking out the competition and kind of sizing up what the ingredients are, etc. But I'm gonna flip it around today. I'm gonna start with the recipe and then we'll get it all done before we compare it with the chicken and dumplings from Mountain House. So, first thing I'm gonna do is add 2 cups of chicken broth to our Instant Pot. And then I'm gonna do a 1.5 cups of cooked chicken, and you're gonna want to make that chicken pretty diced into small pieces, just because when we rehydrate this, you just wanna make sure that all that chicken gets rehydrated. Then I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of onion powder or minced onion, and then a tablespoon of parsley. Then I'm gonna add in a 1.5 cups of peas and carrots. I'm using frozen peas and carrots. And then we're gonna gently spoon in 2 cans of cream of chicken soup, and you kind of just want to keep this on the top. And if you have some chicken sticking out, you want to cover that chicken up with the cream of chicken soup. Last thing we're going to do is take one of these buttermilk biscuit containers and we're going to chop these biscuits up into dumplings. That's what we're going to use for our dumplings. And I think on this first round, I'm gonna try cutting them into pieces about this size, and then we're gonna take these and we're gonna put those right on top in the Instant Pot. So that's what it looks like so far. We're gonna put our lid on. We're gonna do a pressure cook for 2 minutes, and then we're gonna do a 3-minute natural release on this. And this is an experiment for me. This is my first go around with this, so we're gonna see how those biscuits turn out. All done, let's see how we did. That's really cool. That worked really well. We're gonna give this all a stir. We're gonna add it to our trays and we'll see how many cups this single recipe yields us. Well, in a perfect world, this would fill 1 tray. I think it's probably gonna be a little short, which means you can fit a whole lot of chicken and dumplings on 1 tray. One of the things I love, and also one of the things that I hate about the large, is that you can do so much food, but the downside is that it's a lot of work to get the trays prepped for a large, but the reward after you're done, it really pays off. All right, we're going right on to our pre-cut parchment from Freeze Drying Supplies. We're gonna use our tray stackers and stack our 5 trays. And this recipe is just a little shy for a large tray. I think it would do a medium tray just about perfect. So this actually spread out just fine for a large. I'm gonna do a 10 portion configuration with my dividers. I think that will give us a good portion size. Chicken and dumplings is extremely filling, high calorie, so if you don't need any bigger portions than this. We'll kind of figure it out once we compare it with the Mountain House, what apples to apples is, but I think that probably 2 of these is pretty comparable to the Mountain House. So I'm gonna make this recipe 4 more times and then we're gonna fill our trays and then we'll get to freeze drying. We'll compare the Mountain House and we'll take a peek at what that looks like. I also forgot to mention that I would really encourage you to kind of make this recipe your own. If you like more or less biscuits, you could do that. If you want it more chicken, you could definitely add more chicken. There's definitely room for more chicken, or you can add more vegetables, less vegetables, things like that. I really like the way this turned out. I think it's gonna be really awesome. but I would be very careful with the biscuits. I think those are gonna be a little bit tricky to reconstitute, but we'll find out here at the end of the video. So on my second batch, I actually experimented a little bit and I doubled up the recipe, and it was really tough to not have it burn in the Instant Pot. Our Instant Pot is pretty small, so if you have a bigger one, you might be okay. But one thing that I did change is I cut the amount of biscuits in half, and I think I like the texture or the consistency of the second better. And that just might be a preference thing. Everyone kind of has their own idea of what chicken and dumplings is supposed to be like. This is the second version. It's a little soupier. That first version is very thick. That could also be changed with the rehydration process. Well, it's real easy to see why this fills you up so much, because this stack of trays weighs like what feels like 30 or 40 pounds. So don't forget to take a minute to subscribe to our channel if you have not already. We do primarily freeze drying on this channel. We do a little homesteading as well, some gardening and things that relate to that kind of topic. And while you're there, click the bell to get notifications of all the future videos that we put out. For us, that's Sundays at 8 a.m. And if you like the content that we're providing, make sure you give us a thumbs up and let us know. Let YouTube know as well. And if you're curious about freeze drying or you have any questions, make sure you take a second to join our Facebook group or our MeWe group. Those are our social media groups, and there's lots of knowledgeable people on there that can answer questions for you, and you can get kind of a gist of what freeze drying is all about. And if you're curious about the freeze dryer, you can follow our affiliate link, which can be found in the description. That'll take you to Harvestright's website. That's the manufacturer of this machine. And when you use our affiliate to purchase your freeze dryer, that gives us a small commission. We use that to put back into our social media groups and also to develop new products for freeze drying to streamline the whole process. And those can be found at freezedryingsupplies.com. Now, with all of that said, we're gonna let the chicken and dumplings get to freeze drying, and we're gonna go check out the Mountain House chicken and dumplings. So we're gonna see what the ingredients look like, we're gonna see what the cost is, and we're gonna put it head to head with our home freeze dried. Now let's take a peek at these chicken and dumplings, and I kind of glanced over the ingredients. They're really pretty good, not a lot of extra junk in there, pretty straightforward ingredients. But let's see what it looks like, and then we'll put it side by side with our home freeze dried. You can see that there's a lot of dumplings because that's the inexpensive part. I don't see a lot of chicken. There's a few small chunks here and there. So we can see what the Mountain House looks like. Let's go check on our home freeze dried. Holy cow, that I think set the record for the longest cycle that I've ever seen in my freeze dryer, at least. It was over 65 hours. That was, of course, a complete cycle, so it wasn't pre-frozen. Normally, I do pre-freeze everything, but this should be good and done. But I think just the thickness and the density of this stuff just makes it that much tougher to freeze dry. And because this took so much longer than normal, I'm gonna make sure that everything is done. Again, with this thermometer, you're just looking for cold spots, because if there's cold spots, then you know you still have frozen water somewhere in there, and you'll have to add some time to the cycle. I'm gonna go ahead and bag and vacuum seal mine. I actually got the new Avid Armor. By the time this video comes out, I'll have a review on this already, so you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description for that video. I'm gonna bag this up, and then we'll take it upstairs and we'll put it head to head with the Mountain House. And just so we know that we're being fair, about 4 of our cubes over here are gonna be 4.5 ounces, so that's what we're gonna use to compare. So ours was in dividers. One thing that I might suggest, and we'll figure out what happens when we rehydrate it, is it looks like they have maybe freeze dried their dumplings separate. So maybe that's something to consider for our home freeze dried, because otherwise everything just kind of freeze dries all together. Maybe it won't matter once we rehydrate. One thing that I do find interesting though is it seems like when we compare the two commercially freeze dried and the home freeze dried, the weights are always the same as far as what we're rehydrating, but the volume of food on the home freeze dried is always more, and I'm not really sure why that is. We're gonna add 1.25 cups of very, very hot water to each of these. Give them a mix. We're going to cover them. We'll let them sit for just a a few minutes, probably about 5 minutes, and then we'll check and see where we're at with those. So I think the trickiest part of the chicken and dumplings even for Mountain House is probably the dumpling part or the biscuit, because things that are that dense and bread consistency in a freeze dryer it's really hard to get it to reconstitute but not be super soggy. So we're gonna see after 5 minutes how we fare on both versions. Let's give this a stir. We'll let it sit for another 4 minutes. Hopefully those biscuits can rehydrate. All right, let's give it a taste test. And I always like to do Mountain House first. I think Mountain House has the texture down pretty darn well because there's some big chunks of dumplings or biscuits in there. And their biscuits did not get fully rehydrated, at least for the 9 minutes that I did it. It's almost more like a biscuits and gravy type texture. But I will say bravo to Mountain House. I think they nailed this one pretty well. One of the better ones that I've had. And here's our home freeze dried. And as always, it tastes more home cooked than a commercially freeze dried food does. And I am still getting some chunks of biscuits, but I do think, this is why you stick around towards the end of the video so you can find this stuff out. I think I would maybe separate the biscuits on a separate tray, or maybe even on the same tray but on a different part of the tray, just to make sure that you get the dumplings to get that right texture that you want for chicken and dumplings. Overall taste though, home cooked is always better than the commercially freeze dried stuff or commercially cooked stuff. Lots more flavor in the home freeze dried. And the last thing I want to do is compare the prices of the commercially freeze dried with our home freeze dried, because the price of commercially freeze dried food has just gone through the roof lately. All right, so all of our ingredients were $1.40, and our electricity was quite a bit higher than it normally is because of that whopping 65-hour cycle. So with the Mylar, the oxygen absorber, and the electricity for all of that, we ended up at $1.11. That total was $2.51. The Mountain House was $9.99. And these are both equal portions on both ends, 4.5 ounces. And there you have it. Pretty typical results for the Mountain House versus Harvestright videos. And I know that it keeps coming up in the comments that you have to factor in the cost of the freeze dryer. There's really no logical way to do that. Otherwise, I would do it. So I don't know if you could just depreciate it over time. I don't really know what the average life expectancy of a freeze dryer is. I've had one for 4 years now, so at least 4 years, I guess. I don't know, but if you average that over thousands of people, I guess time will tell on that and we can get a better number for that. But for now, I don't know, you don't get one. But if you do own a Harvestright or you're looking to buy a freeze dryer, this is good news for you because you can see how much cheaper it is to do your own. Obviously, you can't factor in your own time either. I don't know if you want to factor in the value of your time, but the ingredients are always better, the taste is always better, and I think it's worth it in my opinion. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.